Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Sure thing.
Alrighty. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Part 2. Joining me today is...
And geek for fun.
Indeed. So we're here to wrap up holiday month. We got, 2 more episodes left? Alfie, what are we discussing today?
Well, first I want to just comment on wrap up holiday month.
I didn't even do it on purpose. Those are the best puns, truly.
Truly. But in other news, we're going to be talking about a superhero thing on this channel. Wow. Lo and behold, originality from a geek for fun. It's almost as if he only has one knowledge base. We're going to be talking about the Justice League episode, Comfort and Joy, which I think is from like season 2, but just the title will get you wherever you want to go. And then spiraling out of that, if depending on how long that takes, just superhero Christmas stories in general.
Okay. Before we move too far away from it, I really, as you say, there's only one thing I know about. I just imagine you, like, you get your law degree and everything, and you're in court, and it's like a very serious trial. It's like a murder. And you're defending, like, this guy who's like, totally innocent, and it's all just on you being one hell of a lawyer. And you're like, Your Honor, in Batman number 655, Grant Morrison clearly states... And the guy's just in the background like, I'm going to jail. I'm going to jail forever.
That's where you're wrong, though. Because I don't read Batman comics when I go to court. I read Daredevil, bitch. And that's how I got you off the case. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be here all weekend. So, other than that, first, before we get into this, because I'm curious, what's your general thoughts on, like, Justice League?
The Justice League animated series is one of those things that I grew up with, but I didn't watch religiously as a kid. There were episodes I remember catching and stuff. It's not, like, one of my favorites or anything, but I do think it is very good. Overall, I've kind of soured on the DCAU just a little bit because I feel like for so long it just got too much praise, and now that it seems to be making a return, it's kind of returning in all the worst ways. What with like the Batman Harley Quinn movie and stuff. Justice League vs. the Fatal Five was all right, but I don't know. It feels like nostalgia blinders are on for a lot of people with the DCAU. That being said, I still do really like Justice League. I think it's very good at giving people a window into the DC universe, even if they're not perfect. I don't think you could maybe make an argument for Batman, but I don't think any single character introduced in the DCAU is like, yeah, that is that character. Like, they really nail them. But I think they do a good job of, like, covering the bases for a lot of them, and it gives you at least a working knowledge of a lot of these characters, which is helpful.
Mm-hmm. I feel that's where I stand mostly. The fact that they spiraled out of Batman in the same way that the MCU spiraled out of Iron Man, it kind of informs the takes. Everyone in Justice League is kind of created as this character viewed through the prism of Batman, if that makes any sense. Like, I think that's why you end up with a more antagonistic version of Superman. That's why you end up with a more, like, light-hearted Flash. Who Wally is always, the Flash is always light-hearted, but more so specifically to get that kind of straight man dynamic with Batman. It's why you have a Wonder Woman who is built up with a romance with Batman as one of her primary character traits. So on and so forth. The same way as like Captain America and the MCU was a direct opposition to Tony Stark's ideology. Is like rather than like Captain America in the comics, who's kind of his own thing. There can be strengths and weaknesses to that approach. I feel like it helps build a cohesive universe when you start from like a foundation. And in some cases, I think it can work really well. Like I think everyone will kind of admit that Wally West Flash in this kind of spiraled and made a lot of people think of Wally West first when they think of the Flash for like good reason. They gave him a personality. Not to say Wally never had a personality, but specifically in a mass media outside of the comics, this is probably the best Flash we've got outside of like the TV show. So I feel like that's an advantage there. But at the same time, it also can color a lot of people's, because this was so big and so overcompensating, all-encompassing. It really became a lot of people's definitive DCU to this day. That's why you constantly see a resurgence of like people wanting it to just be the standard, why people want more stuff from the comics, like Harley Quinn becoming such a major thing. It's why you said someone after this show come out, oh, by the way, the Avengers are going to get a movie first. They think you're crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it really did do a lot right, and it was a great culmination to kind of bring all these characters to light. But at the same time, it's left some like very odd takes, kind of lingering in the fandom, and like I'm kind of guilty of it myself. Like I kind of, we did it together. I'll not throw myself entirely under the bus. I'll drag you down with me. DCAU really nerfs Martian Manhunter when you get right down to it, and it's something I'm pretty okay with. Here's the character that's like one of the most powerful telepaths in comics. Martian Manhunter has telepathic feats that are on par with, Professor X when you really look at it. But also he's just as strong as Superman and has laser eyes, and I'm like, why did that get added in? It seems like a dumb addition, but at the same time, I'm not the guy who read Martian Manhunter comics. I've actually never read a solid run on Martian Manhunter. I've read a couple issues here and there, and I never get into the character. So really, DCAU Martian Manhunter is my definitive version, but I think there's a really strong argument that it's at the very least a physically weaker version, and might even be a weaker version in characterization too. Because I know I've certainly run into people with that with Wonder Woman. DCAU Wonder Woman is fine. She ticks a lot of boxes. She gets very few moments of like genuine compassion. She gets very few moments to like really shine out and just make you go, oh wow, she's better than everyone else on this team. Because even Superman has those stories where even the best Superman stories have that moment where he's like struggling with being a god kind of thing. And Wonder Woman doesn't ever give it a second thought, and that's like one of the most impressive things about her. And DCAU never touches that with the 10-foot pole. So it's just like there's things that I feel like if DCAU Wonder Woman is all you know her for, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice, because you're missing out on some of the greatness of that character.
And I think that's almost kind of relevant to this discussion, because although I don't remember if there was in previous episodes if maybe there was like an arc explaining why or something, but I think it's kind of a disservice that Wonder Woman's missing from the Christmas episode.
I mean, that's just kind of how the show worked, to be fair. You'd get an episode where, like, rarely did you get episodes where it was the whole league. It was usually, like, 2 to 3 members of the league on a mission together. Maybe 4. And then the episodes where you got the whole league working together, those were, like, your big climactic moments, or the whole league would show up just for the fight. but like the episode would be focused on 2 to 3 members. So this episode is focused on GL and Hawkgirl, Martian Manhunter and Superman, and then Flash. So you've got 5 members there out of the 7. So that's covering even more ground than the show normally did. But I mean, even then, Superman doesn't really get much character development for as much as that one scene of him from this episode is floating around.
I mean, I think that's... I would argue that is how you do an ensemble right, when you've got so many great characters, especially in a story like this where it is all about the individual moments. All you really need is a scene, just that one good scene that perfectly sums up what this character means at this time of year, and that's all you need, because that's all the people are going to remember. So I feel like if you were going to have multiple people, they don't need you keep it focused on your main cast, like your Flash, your Hawkgirl, and your Jean. But then you can have the rest of the league just get like scenes like Superman did, and I think that's how you justify being able to do the whole league without making everything overly cluttered. But at the same time, I can understand and sympathize with it, again, having so many characters juggling around. When you it definitely feels that you have a strict story with specific characters that you want to tell, and you only got so much runtime to work with. That I do understand, and I feel like for what it gets here, it's definitely one of the best, like, just standouts, put it on pieces of just like, oh yeah, not just like of the show, but like just DC content. That this generally does feel like, except for maybe the Jon Stewart, Kendra romance, or Shayera as she's here. Everything else here does kind of feel like it's the same as just like the regular DC universe. It could just be a comic special. Nothing really stands out as like specifically for this show outside of that. And I feel like that's partly to its strength. Right? This does feel like one of the definitive examples of a DC Christmas special.
I think that's a fair point. It does a really good job of just being a good standalone story, which is particularly impressive because this is the only single episode of Justice League.
Wow.
Yeah. Once you go to Unlimited, they do single episodes, but every other episode of just Justice League is either 2 or 3 parts. Like their season finales are 3-parters. The series opener was 2 parts, or no, it was 3 parts. I want to say. I'm not even sure of that the pilot may have only been 2 parts as well. But yeah, every episode of Justice League before this one is a multi-part story. This is the only single episode of Justice League, at least as far as I can remember. And then the next episode is the 3-part finale of Justice League. And then the show picks up again with Unlimited. So this is actually very much a statement, it almost feels like, of like kind of a send-off. Because there was a chance they maybe weren't going to get Unlimited at this point. I don't know. It's certainly possible. They'd been kind of talking about ending things for a while, from what I've come to understand about the kind of the background on the show and stuff. But I don't want to talk too much out of turn because I don't know the studio politics of that particular moment. But I knew that they were always kind of flirting with cancellation or ending the series at various points throughout a bunch of the different DCAU projects.
Yeah, I know ever since the production or pre-production of Batman Beyond, that worry's been hanging. After they did Superman TAS and the New Adventures of Batman, they were just kind of like, is this all we're getting? Maybe? Oh, you want us to do a young Batman show? Okay, I guess we can do that, but we'll do it our way. And then they did the Justice League show because they kind of got some leeway with that, from what I remember reading, to just do what they wanted. But yeah, ever since Superman TS ended, they were just kind of on much, much rockier ground. So yeah, I can totally see this being a send off to the Justice League with something specifically timed to the. I don't know if this was actually released around Christmas, but
It
the
certainly
season
feels that way.
Yeah. The season of a spirit of like giving superheroes and a way of just like everyone, all the characters that didn't get to show up on their own shows except for Wonder Woman get their own arc and their own send off with some resolution to what makes each of them specifically a hero. Batman you don't need to see because you've already had an entire series of fucking Batman. He got his own Christmas special as well with when they mention that Kara's off with Barbara. That's a Batman TAS episode, which I think is a nice tie-in. And then Superman, of course, got his own series. Wonder Woman should have got her own series, but I guess they were still like, oh, we could barely get Superman a series.
They never even fought for it. They never even like brought it up as a good idea to try.
I mean, just like you'd think, right? Trinity animated series leading into a Justice League animated series, but what the fuck do I know, hey?
The one I always go back to in my head is, man, how cool would it be if Beware the Batman and Green Lantern the animated series kept going, and then we got a Wonder Woman 3D animated series in that style, and then that was the new DCAU.
That'd be pretty.
Well.
That's the Christmas present we will never get.
Yep.
Thank you all at home who didn't watch those shows.
Like, I don't even love Beware the Batman that much, but like, God, Green Lantern and Wonder Woman, that'd have been so cool. Oh well. Anyway, yeah, so I don't know. I like this special. How do you feel about the romance between Hawkgirl and Jon Stewart?
It's one of those things where I feel like Hawkgirl is kind of an underrated character in Justice League. Especially the first season, I think, where the Thanagarians invade. She actually has like a quite interesting like arc that she goes through throughout all of that, and I always find her being, in a way, she's almost the precursor to how a lot of people write Wonder Woman these days. In a negative way when it's done for Diana, but in a positive way when it's done for her here, where she doesn't even necessarily feel like she fits on the team. She's just there because she really knows how to do a good fight, and she's trying to make up some past mistakes, and then through the exposure of being around these truly good people, she herself grows and becomes a much stronger person. I really like that arc, and I feel like her development here, I haven't read that many Hawkgirl comics, so people have to correct me if they are big fans. I know my friend Mo, who runs the Talking JSA Twitter account, he's a big Hawk fan in general, so he could probably be attacking me if he sees this. But I feel like it's one of the stronger things I've seen with her, especially for like one of the advantages of the DCAU was getting to see characters for you never normally get to see in general media get some good character stuff. So I appreciate it for that. Jon Stewart, however, I mean, I think the snowman he made here has more personality than he does.
Oh, what a dig. I don't know. Jon Stewart is really a breakout character from this show. He's like, I still to this day the tweet I will always remember reacting to the first trailer for the 2011 Green Lantern film was, man, they made Green Lantern white. Marvel be fucking up. It's forever seared in my memory. Like, Jon Stewart was a really breakout character, and it really did go to just the idea of just showing representation on screen it'll just create an audience, because people like to see themselves. They like to see stuff that's not just the same, five white guy kind of thing. So he definitely is a breakout character for that reason alone. I do think Jon Stewart has an interesting personality dynamic on the team, and he gets a lot of cool moments throughout the series. But he's not a very strong personality, is I think the distinction. He has a tendency to just fade into the background when he's around a lot of the other members. Like, he's paired with the Flash a lot in this series, and I mean that's just comics lore in general. Green Lantern and Flashes always seem to have some kind of connection, but like it's very strong here, and I think that he's remembered most fondly for those interactions with the Flash, because that's when he gets to have the most of a real like character-based dynamic, because he's like the straight man, but he's also like, you know, super dependable in every episode that he has with the Flash. Like that's like the go-to pair. There's not a Jon Stewart and Batman episode, but there are like 3 Jon Stewart and the Flash episodes. It's ridiculous. So that being said, for his entirety of his character, I think it's particularly a gut punch, because Jean and Shaira had been developing this relationship since the end of season 1, I want to say, is when they really first started to hint at it. I'm pretty sure it's season 1 that ends with John. It's that immediately he should have been written off the show just for that. You know who really would have been a great Green Lantern for Justice League? Kyle Rayner.
Wow, get out of here. Show's over. Couldn't help. What episode, man? Well, fucking plug.
Anyway, like, I believe, if I'm remembering events correctly, season 1 ends with like John incapacitated in the like medical bay of the Watchtower, and Hawkgirl comes in, and like they talk for a minute and then kiss like right before it goes to credits, and then you don't really see much develop between them for the rest of the second season until you get to this episode. And then directly following this episode is the 3-parter with Thanagar invading, which wrecks their whole shit. So, does John have much presence, much of a character or personality in this episode? I think I'd say he has more personality than his snowman, because it's like a fun little thing that you get to see that he likes, like winter activities, you know, snowball fights, making snowmen and snow angels. I think that's a fun little character thing to show that he's got kind of that kiddish heart thing. I thought that was kind of a fun idea.
I like specifically the line where he's like, well, Shaira's like, oh, you can fly through space at like near light speeds, but you get more excited and scream over going down a hill on a sled kind of feel. And he explains why that was so important for him. And I feel like that's something I really appreciate with not just him, but like I think that's just good Green Lantern writing. And I've come to pick up on this more just through association with you fucking stan. But like, I almost feel like it should also be an unstated rule that to be able to use the powering right, you do need to have a child's imagination, like deep down somewhere. I don't.
Okay, well then Hal Jordan's just out.
No, but he is. He's a fucking kid. Are you kidding me? His whole thing is, though, I know you're wrong, I can do it. And then Sinestro's whole thing is, no, you're all wrong, watch how I rule it much better. They're just fucking children, and I think that's like something I've noticed as I've read more about his characters and learned more about his characters. Even Laughly's, they've all got some very like deep down childish mentality, but it's what lets them see the world in a bigger place than like normal men could. It's why like it fucking takes everything in his power for Oliver Queen to do it, because Oliver Queen is a very grown up, like super fucking, I know how the world works, I'm so far left you can't even see me on the screen anymore. Whereas like Batman would probably be really good, because Batman's still got that childish mentality, if that makes any sense.
No, I think I see what you're getting at. That's an interesting take. I don't think I'd quite understood it in that way. But that's an interesting idea. I'm gonna have to go back and reread some stories, see if that really comes out, because like the way I've talked about it, like Kyle Rayner to me gets the ring when he is like 19 in a day. He is still very much a kid in my mind when he gets the ring at first, and Kyle's story is just kind of like about learning the self-confidence and learning, especially with just the amount of responsibility that's chucked on him, because he doesn't even have the core to fall back on. So I could see that. That's kind of got some interesting dynamics to it. So I think John is fun here. I think this episode is less about for John and Shaira. I feel this episode is less about them like getting a big character moment. And it's more about like, let's just see them happy once. And I think you really do get that. Particularly, it's a great gag when she takes him to Mos Eisley Cantina and starts a fight. Like, that is such a good gag.
Yeah, it's a good look into completely getting away from the usual trappings of what a Christmas special looks like, while still keeping it in the spirit of these two characters being happy. More so in Shaira's case, but he eventually goes around to it. Like it's fun. It shows you, like, again, focus on the spirit of the season and the message, and showing these characters rather than necessarily, okay, and there has to be snow in every shot, and then here's the part with the reindeer. Like, you know, if you know what I mean. It's just like a lot more of a mature approach to what celebrating a holiday actually means.
I think I'd agree with that. Okay, let's talk about, you want to do Flash, you want to do Martian Manhunter?
Let's do Flash.
Okay. I think this is the most, it is a Christmas special that this episode gets, because, like, the other one, you know, Superman takes him to the farm and everything, but it's still got, like, this weird, very isolated vibe, whereas this one is just the most superhero saves Christmas kind of thing.
And I feel like for the Flash, who is the most child POV character in this show, he's the one that when the age Justice League is primarily targeted at, everyone's favorite. He's the funny one. He's the one who is got the youngest mentality, and he's the one who's super hyperactive and trying to be just the most wholesome, no baggage whatsoever. Which is a shame, because part of me is also like, well, like, Superman should also fill that role, and he kind of does in this episode. But then in a lot of Justice League, he also just becomes the dick. So apart from that, I feel like Flash filling that role makes the most sense. He is the guy who you can play the cheesy Christmas special with completely straight and have it work, because he is 100% giving it his all completely earnestly. And I especially really like this. I think it informs a lot of how I view the Flash, and what makes his villains work and him work is Flash is always in this show is always kind of in my argument for why I think we really should stop making every single fucking supervillain in the DC universe a mass murderer. 'Cause then you can't do stuff like this. You really can't. If everyone's got a body count, you can't do these stories where it's just like, yeah, you're a criminal, but fuck it, you have a heart, like, kind of thing. And, like, you can get moments like that sometimes, right? Where, like, the villains team up with the heroes. But whenever we started drifting into the ludicrous amounts of blood on the hands of people, it has made it feel a little hollow, where, like, really, you're gonna bother with this? Why don't you just throw them in jail straight away? Or why don't you just beat the snot out of them? Or why would they bother doing this when last week they were blowing up a children's hospital? When you have characters who literally just want to, like, rule the world or rob a bank, like, I feel like it's, or just do themed crimes for their own ego, where, like, that kind of creativity, I feel like with the Ultra Humanite here, you get a lot more of just, like, this is a character meeting another character and being able to talk about something on a very completely ridiculous, completely just obscene, but maybe this feels the most like fucking how Grant Morrison would like approach it. Obviously, if it was Grant Morrison, we'd be in the third dimensional plane, and the duck would reveal itself to actually be the spirit of Christmas testing them. But it feels like just you got a man who can run faster than the speed of light and talking sophisticated British gorilla, and they decide to repair a farting robot duck toy and give it back to a children's bunch of orphanages before they send him to prison. And then he has a tinfoil. He has a Christmas tree in his room. The end. Like, you put that on paper, it's like fucking comics, man. It's a bullshit. Don't even read this stupid shit. But then you execute it, and you're like, "Aw."
No, I think you're definitely right. The thing about it is, I think that we just spent so long with comics being seen as like juvenile and stuff, and then Frank Miller comes around with Dark Knight Returns, and the Joker's got like, doesn't matter how many, they could stack the bodies a mile high and it would never be enough. You got that, and then there's just it's such a success, and you just have such a pendulum swing of a reaction of, oh, well, everything needs to be this now because this is what people want, this is what's successful. And really the reason that was successful, like on a meta level, is because people were so starved for something darker. But now it feels like since the pendulum swung the other way, we're now starved for something kind of lighter and in the middle, and I think we've gotten there over time. Yes. Like, no way 10 years ago that Batman Elmer Fudd issue could have come out. People would have been in the streets rioting. But, you know, you give it time, and I think it has balanced out a little bit more. And I think people miss the chances to do stuff like this, to do something a little fun and kind of silly with you know, a farting duck robot. And I don't know, there's just something like this. We'll go to talk more about like the wider superhero Christmas adaptation in a minute, but like this has a really good example of something that I think is important when doing that, and it is using the powers to accomplish something that otherwise couldn't be done. Is I think a really important side to it. And so the Flash, like taking a quote unquote Christmas problem and applying superpowers to it is, I think, a really fun idea here. So you've got like the Christmas problem of all the stores in town are sold out of X. And so what do you do with that? And you've got a character like the Flash who can run faster than the speed of sound and run on water and, you know, circle the globe 10 times in a second. And he's like, oh, I'll just go to China and get one directly from the factory. I think that was such a cool move that I really did appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those things where you get to use the powers of the superheroes in not just world-ending situations, but just like inconvenience. Mm-hmm. Like, of course, Superman gets everyone the best gifts. Like, how can he not? He travels the world daily. He can hear anything. He can see anything. He probably knows the coolest little antique shots in corners and parts of the world you've never seen. And can pick them up and then promise like, oh yeah, we'll bring you some stuff. And like, he's probably the best. Clark Kent is renowned for his secret Santa powers. So like I feel like that's one of the fun things about superhero fiction. I would love to see it happens in the comics and it happens in the cartoons. We never see it in live action. And I think it's probably a mistake with like the MCU, because this is probably the format I would fit most, because it's the one that has like everything is connected. It's a free, and you do have those moments where they just kind of sit. I feel like that's where you need some of those. Like, I think Spider-Man in the MCU gets the closest to it, of just like using the superhero powers to just solve daily shit that a regular person would want to solve. And like that's almost more satisfying sometimes than the big fight, because it lets you realize it's a more like adult, well, not even adult, because a lot of kids want that as well. Like a lot of when I was a kid, a lot of people say, "Oh, what superpower do you want?" I said, "Oh, I had super speed." "Oh, why do you want super speed?" "So I can get to school easier."
You're so fucking boring.
Like, it's just, I just have to go there. It's like 2 seconds flat, and then someone pointed out to me, "Yeah, but you're still technically traveling the same relative distance. It's just everyone else thinks you're looking faster." I was like, "Shit!" my theory's been done. So like that I really appreciate. I also really always am a sucker for the trope of the superheroes when they're not fighting crime, just hanging out and doing charity work.
Mm-hmm.
That
Is really nice.
That is just the trope that I mean. If you're a superhero and you're not doing that, you're doing it wrong.
Like, that's my favorite thing about Flash is just the fact that his city, like, loves him. I absolutely adore that about Flash. Like, that's my favorite part to read in the comics. Like, as it's in one of the Jeff Johns volumes with Wally West, and he's like, "So I'm fighting this villain, and just while I got a second, and I'm going around at super speed, I check the oil in this old lady's car, see that it's needs a top off, so I go and do that real quick, and now I'm back in the middle of this fight." And I'm like, that's so fucking good. I love shit like that. So those things I really appreciate too. Yeah, you're right. And Flash just being, helpful to the orphans, which is a thing that they do a lot in this series with Flash being like really, community man. I want to say it's I don't think it's in the episode itself, like, technically, but like the episode with Dr. Destiny, you see him visiting orphans, and that's shown to be just like part of his everyday. And it turns out like that was just a dream, but like the whole point is he just does that, which is kind of a cool little idea. So you get quite a bit of that, which is pretty nice. All right, let's talk about the Superman Martian Manhunter section.
Yeah, so this one I think is the most rich on a character level as like a examining how, because Martian Manhunter is like really cool. I think someone made the best example of what his whole shtick is, that I'm just going to blatantly copy right now, and that is Martian Manhunter is what would happen if like Image made Superman, where he is more alien, more abstract, more powerful, has a more specific and general weakness than just even Kryptonite, and is so like to the core of his idea that he's literally just now the capes of the trunks. Like that is what Martian Manhunter is. He's Superman to the nth indie degree, and I feel like pairing him off more, not just as like, because again, he was originally made to just kind of be the fill-in Superman because Superman was too big to be in the Justice League books, so they made
I forget about that.
They made
That's
Martian
so fucking
Manhunter.
crazy to me.
They gave him all his powers so they could say this is Superman when we can't use Superman, even though you're DC. Of course you could use Superman. Stop being such fucking idiot. You'd have to make a whole ass new character, but I guess okay. So they did that. And a lot of the times it's seen as like a detriment, and sometimes it is played as detriment, and sometimes they avoid putting them together because they are so similar. But I feel like Justice League made the smart move of not only making them slightly different power-wise, but also having this episode where he gets to meet the Kents and interacting with them, and they're, I believe, the first real people in this series outside of League members that really kind of just like, oh hi, yeah, cool, and just like that's it. Completely no qualms about him, nothing commentating on him, just like, oh yeah, don't worry, we raised a Kryptonian, we can handle a Martian.
yeah, I think you're onto something there. John has the, like, I think it annoys you a lot when they do the whole Superman's so lonely and dejected and he doesn't understand people and stuff. I think that annoys you in particular. I think that's something they've run with Martian Manhunter, and it's worked a lot better for him.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Because like Superman doesn't remember his fucking life on Krypton. You could maybe get away with that story with Supergirl at this point, but like I think that just works a lot better for Martian Manhunter because like he had like a wife and children and shit, and now that's just gone for him. So I think it works a little bit better that he's like such an outsider on humanity, and I think this episode does a really good job of like showing that. Like he doesn't understand the traditions and he doesn't understand the feeling and everything. But the one thing he does understand is, or the one thing he comes to understand rather, is the connection. And that's the thing that kind of makes him, you know, it just gives him that little second to... It's so weird because he's so isolated, but at the same time, he goes back to his natural form, and he just sings a song from Mars in the early morning, and he doesn't, at least the way they play it, it doesn't seem like he knows that other people are hearing him as he sings that. And so it's really interesting because his whole arc in the episode is to kind of understand the connection a little bit better, but then his resolution to that arc is to still do it alone. But at the same time, he's connecting back with his own roots, with himself, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm. I think you can probably read it a couple of ways. I'm leaning towards your way, and I think how that works is he's been accepted by the Kents and Clark obviously a while ago, and the act of kindness he gives to the little girl who's waiting for Sansa, all of it kind of culminates in him being able to celebrate it for himself, which I think is an underrated aspect of Christmas specials. Like it's all like it is the spirit for others, it is the giving, but we do giving and being given to and having that fun can be a very healing experience for people who are going through like a lot. Self-care is so important, and sometimes people can get too wrapped up in, oh, I need to give this to someone else, I need to make sure everyone else is fine, that you don't get to enjoy the holiday for itself for you. Like that, like giving the gift of just enjoy yourself to people is something like I think is forgotten, and that's what I think this is kind of taken at, is he's learned that not only can he help other people enjoy this, but he can remember his own roots and his own traditions and meld it into his new adopted home on Earth. He doesn't have to forget them and replace them, which I think maybe if we had this to be entirely a Martian Manhunter episode focused, I think maybe that's where they would have gone with, is part of why he's like afraid to give into it is because he feels like he's almost betraying his Martian traditions by following something else or trying to adapt to something else where he really doesn't want to. But this, where it's just like he can celebrate his own thing while also being in the spirit of others, I think is a really strong message. It's hard. I think Kurt Busiek recently, well, just the day this would be when I've been recording this, he was talking about how Martian Manhunter is often used as a stand-in for like one of the ethnic groups on the Justice League when people like say, oh, everyone's white. But at the same time, he was pointing out that that's not necessarily true, because Martian Manhunter is disguising himself as whatever. Like sometimes he's a black man, sometimes he's any nationality in the world, sometimes he's just white. He's disguising himself as that. That's not him. It's not representation because he's a Martian. It's its own storytelling device. And I feel like that is something that is a lot of people like to point to, oh, that means he is a stand-in for this minority, and I think that is true to some extent. He's definitely talking about like a lot of like keeping your traditions when you don't necessarily celebrate the popular one, but I do think it is still avoiding the trap that a lot of people fall into, is it's not making him an allegory for that, it's making him his own story as what would an actual Martian feel like on Christmas.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is people take it like, well, you got enough, Jon Stewart's black, and the funny thing is he doesn't do that in Justice League. He eventually disguises himself as an Asian man by the time you get to the end of Unlimited, but Jon Jones is never like black. That's like something that comes much later, or well, not much. I mean, it's there by the time you get into stuff after the fact. I think he's. I'm trying to remember what his disguise is when he's in the Batman.
I think it was just like this.
Oh, it was? Okay, I can't I know at least one animated series or movie or something went with the disguise himself as a black person thing. Oh, I think I'm thinking of Justice League Doom. Anyway. Yeah, so like this doesn't do that. It's I don't know, it's just interesting. I do like that scene though where he's walking around Smallville and in the middle of night on Christmas Eve. I thought that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. It's good imagery. You never normally get to see Smallville outside of just
the farm.
Yeah, his son and a cornfield.
Yep,
which is a
the
powerful
farm,
image.
and then maybe like the school, and then that's yeah.
But you forget there's a whole ass town there, which I would like to see. I don't know. Smallville's one of those things which I kind of have conflicted feelings on of just like how much we should touch it, how much we should just like keep it as almost like an ethereal, almost like Krypton, where like Superman's long moved past it. It's just in his past as a bit of his lore, because the more you kind of delve into it, especially recently, you're just like, would Superman really be A-okay with everyone in Smallville knowing his identity? At this point, I don't know. So I don't know. I feel that that's an interesting thing that we just get to see more of the world here. Specifically for like just in terms of everyone, we get to get more Central City. We get to see more of like where Shiera just like hangs out in another quadrant, and then we just get to see where Superman hangs up his cape. And I actually really like Superman in Justice League proper is infinitely more enjoyable. I don't know what happened when they went to Unlimited. In Justice League proper, he's not spectacular because he is kind of just in the background for everything, but he's in the background almost harmlessly. He's drawn a little old for some reason, but
it's the cheekbones. They drew the cheekbones and then they dropped it for Unlimited.
Which I'm very thankful for. But at the same time, he feels like the same guy you met in Superman, the animated series, like a decent portrayal of Superman. And then when they get into Unlimited, for some reason, they're just like, oh, well, we got to make an entire storyline predicated on the fact that he cannot control himself. He is on the edge of murder at every fucking second, apparently. But,
man, I really need to hear more of your take on Superman and Justice League Unlimited, but I think that's got to be an episode on its own.
We'll get there one day, when the people demand it. But other than that, it's one of those things like here, I feel like he's Superman at one of his best. I think it's a good reason why this clip in particular seems to be so popular. Nearly every year you'll see people posting screenshots or just the clip itself from this of just, it's such a perfect Superman moment that we had to wrap his presents in lead tinfoil so he couldn't see, and he's just like, Santa wrapped them. And you can read that in so many equally valid and almost more interesting ways, where it's like Superman knows Santa and doesn't want to disrespect the work of his co-workers, or Superman believes in Santa because Superman believes in everyone.
I definitely think the stronger evidence is to the second one, because you get to the later part of the episode where John was sneaking out of the house and Superman's under the tree and he goes, lead.
Like with all... Injustice Superman could never be so threatening than Superman right there being like, that is my Superman when he's just like, that is so fucking real.
Yeah. I do quite like the characterization for him in this. And there's a lot of good subtlety, and it's kind of packed one right after the other. In particular, like when they're walking up to the house, and he's like, well, you think I'm going to let you spend Christmas Eve alone in the Watchtower? Besides, Batman likes the alone time. I'm like, but you'll let Batman spend Christmas Eve alone in the Watchtower? The fuck? But no, I thought that was like really good. It's like, oh no, no one is spending their first Christmas or whatever on this planet alone in the Watchtower. No way in hell. I thought that was pretty good.
I see. It's just a nice moment of he's probably already had like him and Bruce probably do the same thing that Bruce and Gordon do. It's just like they meet for coffee, for like a minute because their schedules are so packed and that's all they need. And he's just like, yeah, well, I'm just gonna actually do the work for someone who needs it. And I think as Superman as background mentor figure has a lot of power. I know the Supergirl TV show has been getting a lot of mileage out of that, and I know so many people are like, it's fucking disgraceful to Superman because she's doing things he can't do, and he's like praising her. And I'm like, and then like I saw a lot of people coming at Bendis for like, you can come at Bendis for a lot of things. I know you can come at Bendis for one thing in particular, and I will not fault that you with that. But one thing I cannot understand is so many people are attacking him for like, I can't believe Superman is letting John take all the credit for coming up with the United planets. And I'm like, you think fucking Superman cares that his son is getting the credit for a good thing? Like, come on. Do you understand this character?
Oh, man. Yeah, I don't know what to do with that one. I'm not going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. How's that?
Sounds good. But yeah, it's just so I feel like that taking Superman, if you're not gonna make him the person who learns the lesson or learns the thing, making him be the mentor who helps someone go along that in very subtle ways, or even just offers them one selfless act that then inherently will always lead to another, and just kind of set that ball rolling, I think is a very strong use of the character. And I think maybe to get to the point of like what I was kind of going with, like Christmas stories as a whole, I think Superman fits that role particularly well because he can not only be your father figure, but he can also be like your cool older brother when written well. And I feel like that's kind of the vibe he gives off here with John. It does feel like he's like his cool older brother here, which I think is a cool dynamic for them both.
Yeah, I think so. Superman has really interesting Christmas stories, and by that I mean he's got like one. A couple of years ago, DC released like a holiday special that was mostly just recollections of old Christmas stories that they've printed over the years, and they had a Superman and a Supergirl one, and the Superman one was Lois interviewing him about how he goes to a mail station in Metropolis and once a year reads all the letters that people send him as Christmas requests, or just send to Superman as requests, and some of them are so sad and so hopeless that like he can't do it to himself to put him through it every day of the year, so he saves it all for Christmas. When he's at his like most, okay, if I'm gonna be able to do anything, now's gonna be the time. And he goes out and tries to fulfill as many as he can. Like helps a Holocaust survivor meet with one of her long lost relatives. Then like a couple stories later, there's like a Batman story and stuff, and then it's a couple stories later, and it's the Supergirl Christmas special. And she's having a hard time really knowing what to do as far as the Christmas spirit and everything. She's having a hard time fitting in on Earth, and so like he takes her and gives her a big bag of mail of people asking for favors from Superman. It's like, here, take a couple of these. And I'm like, so it's just the one story, really, when you get right down to it. Superman answering Christmas letters. It's just, I don't know, it's just funny that like that seems to be such a go-to because it's years apart. I can't imagine the writer, of the Supergirl one read the Superman one. It just seems like a funny, hey, here's an idea I bet no one else has ever done.
It's one of those things where they struck on the idea, and it's such a golden one that it's almost like, well, there you go, there's your premise every year. Just do another bunch of those letters, because it's like you can have each of them be a different story and each of them different thing. It's just like in the same way a good Santa story can just be about him going around meeting different kids and doing different things. Superman is already about got a lot of mileage of just like Superman helps people, the story.
Mm-hmm.
But in particular, Superman just going out and that's particular level of Christmas story where it's all about people really giving the utmost when even at their most tragic they're still finding hope. It just fits Superman like almost too perfectly. Like it's one of those things where he has a lot of Christ baked into him sometimes more than I would like. I know you like a lot of your Jesus mixed with your button on your Superman. And
You
I
got
know,
Superman in my Jesus. You got Jesus in my Superman.
I actually prefer a little bit more Father Christmas baked into my Superman. I think the characters are much closer. But even then, the fact that he is able to be compared to both those two lets him fit into this world so well. I know, and fucking Gary Frank drew a fucking killer ass Superman Christmas costume, which he just needs to be every time he does this. He needs to wear that because the S looks so cool in the white and the red. So that's one of those things which I appreciate. But Superman is probably the one who gets it the second most. The one who surprisingly gets it the most is Batman.
Batman does get a lot of Christmas specials, and I think a lot of it just has to do with marketing. He's one of the most popular characters. He kind of gets them all the time. Some of them work. Some of them feel like a stretch. I think the thing about Batman is you have the chance to go like with the dark Christmas story, which is just kind of like fun. Like honestly, one of my favorite Joker stories, which I can't believe because I don't think Paul Dini is a particularly good Joker writer most of the time. Actually, I'm going to take that back because after having read his Dark Knight: A True Batman story, I think Paul Dini is afraid to be a good Joker writer half the time. But like Sleigh Ride is one of my favorite Joker stories, and it's a Christmas story. And I love it to death because he's just so fucking evil in it, and it's hilarious. It does that perfect level of Joker writing where it's like super fucked up stuff that is undeniably funny. Is just that is my crack for Joker writing. I love that. Like the whole scene with him in the drive-thru in Sleigh Ride is fantastic. He just fucking rattles off a 10-minute long order in 2 seconds, and then the person's like, well, you have to slow down, that was way too fast. Fucking just rams his car up to the window, fucking rear ends someone in the process of doing it, demands to see the manager, and just shoots the guy and drives off. It's just the fucking best. It's like I really wanted that toy too. Or did he want the toy or did he want the fries? I think he wanted the fries. It's beautiful. Yeah, but you get a lot of Batman Christmas things, and I don't know, they work to various degrees. I think Batman Noel is pretty good because it does the smart thing and casts Batman as Scrooge, which I think is like that's the thing. Most Batman Christmas stories I read, it doesn't work because Batman really shouldn't be the one to tell you the meaning of Christmas. He should be more the one to have to be reminded of it because he's the kind of person that goes into those dark spells.
I think the one who got it, probably the line that sums it up, is the BTAS episode where he's like, Dick tries to get him to watch A Wonderful Life every year. He's like, I never could get past the title.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I don't know. I think it works better when he's the one reminded. He's the one that needs that kind of reassurance on Christmas kind of thing, because he's such a broody bitch that like he just needs that. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to be happy this time of year, right? Let me do the happy thing. And those are always really sweet. So yeah, you got like Batman Noel, which I think does a good job of it. We'll always just marvel at how Superman's drawn in that book.
That's probably one of my favorite Superman art of all time. Bermejo, fucking, if you haven't seen just any, he can do terrifying Superman, and he can do Superman that makes you believe, yeah, this is the greatest superhero of all time.
Yeah, yeah, he really can. Um, who's a character? Because we've been mostly focused on DC. Who's a Marvel character who you think has good Christmas specials?
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Spider-Man. For the same reason Flash does, but for the same reason Batman does. Because he's all about the community, but he's also sometimes the person he needs to be reminded there's good in the world most. But not in a Batman sense where his default is broody, but in a much more human sense where the holidays can get really fucking sucky for Peter Parker because he remembers so many people he can't spend it with. When normally he can kind of put that off, but depression can hit you sometimes during his holiday times, and I think Spider-Man, specifically for like an adult Spider-Man, like when he's in his 20s and he's been through a bit of a ringer. I've read a lot of really good Spider-Man stories where it's just like he's just done. He hates the cold. He's got a cold now because he's wearing a skin tight onesie and he can't do it, and everything's going wrong and he can't get the presents in time. But then like one act of kindness from one random person would like get him out of his slump, and it will be all right at the end with like some hot cocoa. Like that's I think comes from a much different place than anyone else, and it's almost just as perfect for Spider-Man as for Superman and Batman, because it gets at the core of the character of hope, fun, slapstick, weirdness, horror sometimes, any kind of trope. At the end of the day, it's always about just getting back up after you got beat down. And I think that's a very good message for that. Like one of my favorite things that I think was it was a Christmas special where he has to try and clear Aunt May's porch, shovel the snow out, and every time he's about to do it, his spider sense goes off and he has to go stop something, and each time he comes back there's more snow than there was when he left there. And like it keeps piling up until finally when he gets there, he just comes back and he's just like, Aunt May, I'm so sorry, you must hate me for this. And he just throws a snowball at his face. It's just like, come inside. And it's just like the panel is drawn in such a way where she fucking like decks him with it. And it's just like, come inside. We've got some cocoa for you. And it just like the whole issue's been this beat down, and Aunt May's even beat him down, but it's kind of just been like, yeah, that's not, it doesn't matter. You tried, kind of thing. And I really, really like that stuff for Spider-Man. Apart from him, I feel like the Fantastic Four have, I don't particularly remember them off the top of my head, but I feel like because they are such the family of superheroes, they probably have a lot of good potential.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, part of it's just because I don't read much Marvel, and Christmas comics tend to be more like a filler thing or like part of collections and specials, and I don't tend to pick those things up from Marvel. I probably should try to hunt out that stuff more because I tend to enjoy that stuff more. Knowing Marvel, though, they'll still fuck it up. They'll still like, in order to understand this Christmas special one-off story, you have to have been reading the entire run to this point. But yeah, maybe I should seek that stuff out more. I haven't watched as much of it, or consumed as much of it because I'm not as big a Marvel guy. I guess kind of go back to DC. There are characters who I think are interesting to see around Christmas, because I imagine Wonder Woman could do better around Christmas, because it's like the one time of year that people seem to like get it. So I think you could do a really good Wonder Woman Christmas special where she might be like kind of getting a little down on people, where it's like, this just, some days it just seems so hopeless. Like I think you could do a really good Wonder Woman story where like it starts on Black Friday and she's just seeing the worst of it, and she's just kind of getting down, and then like, it cuts to a month later and she's just been battle after battle, and then you get to Christmas and then it's like, oh no, there it is. That's That's it right there. And they have it in them. It's just about bringing it out. I think there's a pretty good story to be told with Wonder Woman in that regard.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially because what I'd like to see more of, we had struggled trying to find it, but I think the idea that Grant Morrison had, that I wish more Wonder Woman writers actually took, was the idea that she has like the best wardrobe in comics. Like she doesn't just have one outfit, she just has that one like superhero outfit, but then she's got like other outfits for other occasions. And I feel like having Diana kind of stunt on the rest of the competition by having themed Christmas wear could be pretty great. Specifically for stuff like she's such an icon, but also such a kind person. You can just as much see her campaigning on Christmas, or just at a soup kitchen, like while still wearing the most gorgeous like royal Amazonian dress you've ever seen. So like she fits in both those worlds so well, and she's so fast and so powerful. You could probably make it the same issue in the same day. It's one of those things where I feel like there's a lot of potential for the character that I hope, as she continues to get more and more into the mainstream, we'll have to see how the new movie does, but if it's anything as widely successful, despite how you feel about the film, it definitely launched Diana in a big bad way. If it has that same impact, and Batman and Superman are taking a step out of the limelight, I feel like maybe we could get that that standard where we start seeing her become the ambassador for that, because it is probably a shame, and maybe something we should talk about, that there is very few female focused Christmas superhero stories.
Yeah, you say that, and I'm sitting here struggling, trying to think of literally any, which is a real shame, because like, God, if every time I think about Christmas and any family get together, honestly, just think about my mom working her ass off to make it happen. Like, and I mean that's pretty much just like the mother figure of the family that kind of like has to make that stuff work, that has to kind of wrung everyone into joining, and then once they're there, kind of take care of everyone. That usually ends up falling on the mom. At least it did in my family, because my dad, he lived on his own and stuff. And I spent a couple Christmases there, and like my dad and I had our own traditions, but as far as like the big family get-togethers, that was all my mom. And she just worked her ass off every time, and like I kind of I lovingly give her crap every time we go over for like a family event thing, because I remember once, like 3 years in a row, she put rolls in the oven and they burnt, and it was just like, we just forgot to take them out, kind of thing. And so one year we're sitting there saying grace, and it's like, thank God for burnt rolls. And that's like, to this day, I still say that at the dinner table. And if she remembers them and they don't come out burnt or anything, I'm like, but I wanted burnt rolls. It's still like a family joke kind of thing. And yeah, you probably do some interesting stuff with that, particularly with various female characters across Marvel and DC. I think Sue Storm would fit that role really well.
I was thinking of that before you even said it. I'm glad you did. That's her whole gimmick, is being the one sane person on that team. Being able to make that work, and then even you could say like she sends out invites to Namor and Victor, and they show up because they know better not to, like, it's the season, Victor. And it's like, very well, I understand, but I want to sit next to Richards. So like he's at the kids table and he's like actually more content there. Like I think you can get some really wholesome dynamics with just Sue Storm during the mix. This has probably already been done because it writes itself, but Reed's trying to find a way to make a permanent solution to Galactus. The Thing's trying to find a way to finally say something with Alicia and get like a present for something, and he doesn't know what to get her, and have a wholesome resolution there. Johnny learns the true spirit of Christmas and kind of like realizing his own like ego way, and all of this is going on. And in the background of every issue, Sue's sorting some things out. This and this and this until at the end of the issue, make it like a 2-issue. Like she's finally made the most beautiful cosmic Christmas spread you ever imagined with all the Avengers and even some supervillains around, and everyone's just happy. And she's like, "Where did you have the time to do this?" He's like, "Well, I was actually working while you were all going on your moral adventures." And I think that could be a fun resolution, especially because we see it is almost like the mother's holiday of where like. Especially from my mom, and from what you're telling me, it seems the same, of just like that feeling they get of pride when it goes right, when everything you get to see the results of the hard work. I think that is a very real thing that for a lot of mothers who do read comics, they probably would want to see represented a little bit more, with just like, yeah, we've got I'm trying to think of other prominent comic book mothers, but Lois Lane that could be fun, just seeing her fucking panic. Because Lois Lane does not know how to make a Christmas feast. She orders takeout and that's it.
John Kent grew up on takeout and microwave meals. There's no way you can convince me otherwise. Superman dad was always like, "Give me just 1 sec." It's like, and Lois is like, "You're changing a diaper. There isn't a sec." But Lois, there's an astronaut in trouble. Someone else will get it, Clark. No, I mean that's a very good point. Yeah, comic book moms. That's a hard one, because part of it's also because we just do so much to try to keep like characters static, so they rarely get the chance to turn into that, right? But I'm trying to think of other examples of that. I mean, like, it would be twisted as fuck, but I still want to see an Al Ghul family Christmas.
Oh my god.
Right?
Yeah, Christmas is underrated potential.
I know, that'd be fun. I'm just like going through my head and thinking of female comic book characters it'd be interesting to see. I mean, like, Carol Ferris would be the one to try to like invite Hal to, you know, a big important like company Christmas party as her date or something, and he just fucking blows her off, and she's like, you know, I'm better off without him here. You just ruined this important merger I'm trying to negotiate. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one to think about, certainly.
I guess maybe the other major one I can think about, because it's been more relevant to me recently, is like Lady Shiva's Christmas list is just like a hit list. But like not to the death, but just like one challenge a day until she finally gets like Cassandra Cain at the end, and then Cassandra Cain beats her, and then that's her Christmas gift, is seeing her daughter beat her in combat. Like, that could be wholesome. And then Cassandra's like, "Okay, I kicked your ass, now you're gonna have dinner with us." She's like, "Very well, you've earned this victory." Well, that could be fun.
Oh, that's a cool idea. Alright, I mean, I'll just throw in the obligatory more Larfleeze Christmas specials, please. Thank you.
More Larfleeze everything, but especially more Christmas specials. It should be an annual thing, and each of them should be progressively sadder until eventually we just enter a black hole of despair. Because I could even survive the first one, and now you want more? Are you kidding me?
You know, I had some time, Christmas Eve, I was just gonna hang out at the house alone, and I said, well, haven't watched it in a year, I'll go ahead and watch it again. So I watched the Christmas special that I made. I edited this, I knew the story like the back of my hand. I know every beaten path. And it gets to the end, and he's looking at that fucking list, and I just like a single tear goes down the cheek.
I don't blame you, brother. I do not blame you.
I'm like, damn, that edit is just so good.
You did a fantastic job.
thanks.
you built on the works of giants, but you might have even enhanced it. So
Aw,
I think
thank you.
I think that's some good stuff right there.
Alfie, I'm already gonna send you nudes. Just stop.
Hey. Let's not pretend that wasn't my Christmas gift.
You mean you haven't cracked open Goku Black's hair and found the nude I like scrolled up and put inside there? I didn't want Sarah to like find it by accident, but I assumed you would picked up on my various clues.
I got you. Just make sure you don't publish this episode.
Alrighty. Okay. Next week, I want to do a review, and you know, I'm just gonna do it. You got me thinking about it. I want to go reread it. Let's talk about Lex Luthor, Man of Steel.
Oh, okay. I'm down for that.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever reviewed that on the channel, so that should be interesting. Alright, everyone, thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I am the champion of the oppressed. Or am I? Find out next week.
Oh, okay. And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.
Ho, 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 ho! Merry Christmas!